After the events that occurred in Zelda Ocarina of Time, this boy that you see on the screen decides to go out in search of Navi, his fairy that was with him during all the adventure of Ocarina of Time, since as we well remember at the end of this game, Navi separates from him. And here begins our new adventure.
After leaving Hyrule, Link in his search is in a forest riding calmly with his horse, until two fairies appear out of nowhere and they scare his horse, causing Link to fall to the ground, where he remains unconscious for a few seconds, and followed by this, a strange boy appears with a mask, known as the Skull Kid, who goes to where an unconscious Link is, and then he touches him for a while, and while he is touching him, he feels something in his clothes, and it turns out that it is the Ocarina of Time. Then while Skull Kid is testing the Ocarina, Link wakes up really pissed off, but Skull Kid steals his stuff anyway along with his horse. Link of course tries to stop him, but at the end of the road he ends up falling off a cliff, and well, he falls on his buttocks on a flower and arrives at a place where he meets the Skull Kid again, and this guy uses some kind of power to transform Link into a Deku. Followed by that, Skull Kid leaves the area. But when the door closes, Skull Kid left one of his fairies, called Tattle, who will accompany Link on his new adventure so that she can meet her brother again, which was the other fairy. After going through a tunnel, we arrive at the inside of the clock tower, and we find a very strange Chinese guy, known as the Happy Mask Salesman, and this guy tells us that he can return us to our human form if we give him back the Majora's Mask that Skull Kid apparently stole from him, and get our Ocarina of Time back. But we will only have 3 days to do it. When leaving the clock tower, we see that Link appeared in a town called the Clock Town, in a new zone called Termina, in which within 3 days, the annual Carnival of Time will be held. In Clock Town we can see that the moon is very close to the earth. After that Link talks to different people, and after a good while of gathering information, he goes to the Astral Observatory, where we meet a dying old man, who lets us use his telescope. While Link is using the telescope, he notices that Skull Kid is on the top of the clock tower making fun of him, and well after that, on the 3rd day at the Carnival of Time, the doors at the top of the clock tower open, and Link finds the Skull Kid there, and we see that the moon is way much bigger than before, and it will fall on the earth at any moment, and it is because of the Skull Kid. The other fairy that stayed with Skull Kid, Tattle's brother, Tail, tells us that there is 4 giants that can stop the moon, one in the swamp, in the ocean, in the mountain, and the canyon, and tells Link that he has to take them there. Then Link and Skull Kid fight for a while, then Link spits on him, and with that Skull Kid drops the ocarina. Conveniently Link remembers the Song of Time that Zelda taught him in the previous video game, and he plays it, and returns 3 days in the past, starting from scratch, in the doors of the clock tower. Then Link enters again to the clock tower, and meets the Happy Mask Salesman again, who gets a piano out of nowhere, and teaches us a song that makes Link return to his normal human form. Then we see that a mask falls to the ground, which houses the spirit of a Deku, and we can turn into a Deku whenever we want, but due to the deal that Link had with the mask seller, that Link would recover the Majora's Mask. The seller of course asks for it, but as you know, Link couldn't get it back, so the guy gets really pissed off and tells us that the mask that was stolen is a mask with demonic powers, or something like that, which is really dangerous for the world and stuff. Well, after that Link goes to each of the places that Tail told him where the giants were, which were held by Skull Kid. First Link goes to the swamp, and while he is going there, he found something interesting on a tree, and it's some kind of drawing of the Skull Kid. After that Tattle tells Link the story of Skull Kid. We see Skull Kid playing with Tattle and Tail. We don't care about this though, but the flashback shows how the Skull Kid steals the Majora's Mask from the mask seller, which might be a little bit more relevant than the Skull Kid's life. Anyway, after that, we continue moving towards the swamp, where Link arrives to the Deku Palace. However, there are 2 guards at the entrance that won't let Link in because he's a human, so Link uses the Deku Mask to turn into Deku, and now we can go in, and Link gets to this room, where he has to save a monkey that was captured by these people, because they think that it kidnapped his Deku princess, which is the daughter of this guy, who is the king. And well, we talk to the monkey and he teaches us a song that we'll use later, and of course we'll have to save the monkey before they cook it. After that Link arrives at the Woodfall Temple, where we have to save the Deku princess that is inside of it, but this temple is submerged underwater, so we play the song that the monkey taught us before, and it makes the temple come out of the water. Once inside the temple, Link goes through different challenges, and suddenly we arrive at a mysterious room, where we find this frog that is mounted on a turtle, and well, Link obviously defeats it, and gets the boss key, which is necessary to open this door here, and complete the dungeon. And at the end of the temple we come to a new room, where this guy suddenly falls from the ceiling, so Link kills him of course, and when he dies, he leaves a mask, which apparently holds one of the 4 giants prisoner, and finally we are face to face in front of this giant, who is really ugly by the way, and it teaches us a mysterious song that makes Link to be able to call him, and this will be very useful later. After that, we appear in a different room, where we finally find the Deku Princess, and she asks us to take her back to the Deku Palace, and here Link, instead of guiding her to the palace, like a normal person would do, he takes the princess and puts her in a super small fucking bottle, and when he gets to the palace, Link takes the princess to the Deku King, but unfortunately, they already made a monkey soup. Just joking, ha 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 ha. Actually, with that, Link saved the monkey, and one of the 4 places where Link has to go is already done. After that, Link notices that his time is almost up, so he plays a song, and we go back 3 days in the past. Immediately, Link goes to the mountain area, but there are some giant pieces of ice blocking the entrance. Luckily for Link, there is a piece of ice in the shape of an anal plug above them, and Link just shoot an arrow to make it fall and break the ice below. Then we walk for a while and arrive at the Goron village, where we find a shadow that is on the ground, which doesn't make sense because apparently there's nothing above to cause it, but luckily we got a magic magnifying glass, which allows us to see things that we normally wouldn't be able to see. And we see the ghost of Darmani, a Goron hero, and he guides us to some place on the top of this mountain. Once inside, Darmani stands without doing anything until Link plays a song on his flute. After that, Darmani starts to cry, remembering when he was alive. After that, Darmani dies again, dropping the Goron mask to the ground, with which we will be able to turn into a Goron anytime we want. Then Link goes to the Snowhead Temple, but there is a giant Goron blocking the entrance, so Link has to put him to sleep with a lullaby. And finally, he is able to enter the temple, and once inside the temple, we go up several levels to meet this dancer, who we have to kill in order to get the key to the main boss. And finally we reach the boss room, where we find this frozen bull, at which we simply throw a fire arrow to defrost it. And after that, Link turns into a Goron, and obviously defeats the bull, and once done, we get its mask and Link releases the second giant, and so we complete the second zone of the game. Then at the entrance of the next zone, Link finds this fence which he cannot cross, because it's too high, so Link searches all over Termina, and finally arrives at a ranch, where he finds his horse Epona, that previously Skull Kid stole, but he is locked up by a girl who tells us that same night some aliens will come to steal their cows, and she asks us for help. Of course Link, as a gentleman, helps her, and he kills the aliens that arrived that night. And finally we recover Epona, and Link is now able to access the new area. When we get to the ocean, we see some birds in the distance that seem to be flying over something, and as we get closer, we realize that a Zora named Mecha is already dying in the water. So we help him get to the shore, and although Mecha is dying, he suddenly gets up and starts playing his guitar, and asks Link to recover his friend's eggs that were apparently stolen by some pirates. After this, Mecha falls to the ground, and we play a song for him, and he finally dies, giving us the Zora mask, with which Link will be able to turn into Zora whenever he wants. After that, Link goes to the pirate fortress to recover the stolen eggs. He fights with a couple of pirates, and finally recovers them, and now Link meets Lulu, who was the owner of the stolen eggs, and then Link rides on a giant turtle, and it takes us to the Great Bay Temple, in which we will have to complete several puzzles that I don't want to draw. Seriously, my hand hurts. Anyway, we fight against the final boss, which is this giant fish. Link just turns into Zora and throws some bombs that were around the area into its mouth, and boom, with that Link wins, and we free the third giant of the game, and complete the third zone. Finally, for the last dungeon, Link goes to the area of the canyon, where he reaches the stone tower, which he will have to climb to reach the top. Once he is up, he will have to overcome several challenges inside the dungeon, and after that, he will have to do the same. But this time he will do it head first, until he finds this ghost, which he obviously kills. And when Link completes that, he will face the boss, which in this case are 2 giant worms, but it's quite easy for him, because he found a mask which makes him giant. Then after defeating them, we get their mask, and finally we free the 4th giant, and now we complete the 4 zones. After this, we will have to wait for the 3rd day, while that day arrives, Link starts to do any stupid thing, like dancing in the street, or making a parade with chickens. Anyway, finally, when the 3rd day arrives, we wait until midnight to go back up to the top of the clock tower, where we meet the Skull Kid again, and we see that the moon is about to fall on the earth. But fortunately Link plays the song that the first giant of the game taught him, and with that, he summons the 4 giants, which stop the moon that was falling. After that, Skull Kid passed out, but suddenly he starts to levitate, and we realize that the Majora's mask was manipulating Skull Kid all this time, so it leaves his body and goes to the moon, and of course Link follows the mask. After ascending to the moon, Link arrives at a large field with a tree in the middle, where there are 5 mysterious children, and one of them has the Majora's mask on. And he tells us that we can give him all the masks that we got throughout the game. And well, I didn't draw those events, like getting all those masks, because this video would have lasted 5 hours, but let's just suppose that I did it. And after giving them all the masks, they give us the most powerful mask in the game, the Fierce Deity mask, with which Link literally defeats the Majora's mask with a couple of sword blows. And that's it, my friends. Game over.